Hey there, brought to you today by Audible. Go get yourself a free month, free audiobook. Check out, I don't know, I really enjoyed the novel 11/22/63 by Stephen King. A little reimagining of what the world would be like if JFK hadn't been shot, but a lot of twists and turns on the way there about time travel and multiple dimensions and all that stuff. Craziness. audibletrial.com/jkwd. audibletrial.com/jkwd. Free month, free audiobook. Go get yours now. Here comes the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Josh Works Out Some Stuff in His Crazy Little Brain. The amygdala is a little almond-shaped sliver of your brain and my brain and everybody's brain, unless something went horribly, horribly wrong with your brain. But anyway, you've got an amygdala, and it is the what the heck is that center? It's where the four F's are decided first. The fight, flight, freeze, or fuck, and then after that, the brain gets to process everything. And if your amygdala decides that something's an immediate threat, then it just bypasses all your other decision making and just goes into go mode. And it's an anxious little sliver of brain. And if you've got the bzz, 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 there's something there going on, that's your amygdala. It's the thing that kind of creates fights in your head when you're like sitting next to a stranger on a plane, and like the Jim Jeffries bit when you're talking about bustling elbows over the armrest on a plane or in a movie theater or something. And it's easy to trick because we haven't been out of the wild for all that long, and we've been around for a really long time. It's like, in some parts of the world, we're still actually worried about tigers jumping out of the bushes, and that's when you want your amygdala active, right? You want you want the thing that says there's a 600-pound man-eater in the bushes. I think I better get the fuck out. That's where your amygdala comes in handy. Where your amygdala does not come in handy is when you turn on the TV and even if you're watching the news and somebody got shot 400 miles away, you think that's like right next door and somebody's going to come get you. If you watch too much CSI or Law and Order or something, your amygdala gets going and tells you how scary your world is, and you're just going to stay inside and watch more TV because TV is safe. Anyway, that's why news gets you with, if it bleeds, it leads, because we know you'll click on it. You're really worried about whether you need to be worried. And most of the time you don't have to worry, but we don't have that part of the brain yet. And part of media responsibility right now, well, and always, we can talk about the current presidential administration and the war on the war on reporting, but really this has always been the case. Media is in the hands of private companies these days, has been for most of the time in the U.S. So, if it's in the hands of the state, like it is in North Korea and in Russia, then it's just a propaganda machine. But in order to make money, it needs eyeballs, and in order to get eyeballs, it needs to scare people. So you say you want more good news, but click on that shit. So that's why we give you a little bit of good news here and there. Say, hey, look, we did give you more good news. You just didn't find it. because you say you want the good news, but really you're clicking on the stuff that your amygdala says, that's a problem, we better go check that out. It's also why, hey, take notice if you're walking around. This probably happens more to us city folk. You ever kind of jump a little bit and you look down and it's a branch? Your amygdala thought it was a snake. You're out in the country, it might actually be a snake, but not a whole lot of snakes up here where I'm living, midtown. And frankly, all the snakes that I do see are harmless little cute things that slither into the bushes and go away. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yes, your fucked up little tiny piece of brain that makes you think everything is scary. Well, this is the piece of brain that once you get it going, it's really hard to stop. So here's what I've been doing. I wake up in the morning and I try not to get into beta. So I'm working on learning more about this, but you get 5 basic brain states, waves, sets of waves, and you can only have one at a time, really. And there are some overlaps, and there are some special cases, especially if your brain chemistry isn't, is outliers. If it's a little bit different with addiction and stuff like that. But delta is like your deep dreamless sleep. Theta is where you're asleep and dreaming. If you're a lucid dreamer, if you remember your dreams, you're doing it in theta. I've discovered that I can't direct my dreams, but if I'm in a dream and I wake up, I can direct myself back into the dream when I go back to sleep. That's in theta. Alpha is that kind of, when your brain isn't really making decisions. It's where you find like a flow state, but it's also kind of like when you wake up and you're not really sure what's real and what's not, or if you're waking up and you're like, where am I? You're either still drunk from last night or you're an alpha. More than likely, you're an alpha. Beta is your regular awake and conscious kind of thing, and gamma is just kind of overdrive, and it's actually a very rare state, and you're not in it for very long. But some of the research is suggesting that that gamma states are really good for like Parkinson's, and perhaps Alzheimer's and other other dementia. But anyway, so I try not to get all the way into beta when I wake up. I kind of go on autopilot. Once you've got habits, once your body's used to something, you can do it without conscious decision, and you can't make a lot of conscious decisions in alpha, but anything that you can do on autopilot, you can do in alpha, which is pretty cool. So I wake up and I go drink a bottle of water, and I give the dog his allergy pill, and I have half a cup of coffee. I pour a cup of coffee. I have a couple of sips, and I sit down and meditate. And I can do that without ramping up and then ramping back down and then ramping up again, which is nice because once you get into beta, once you get kind of into that decision making phase, not only do you have to ramp down, but now you start relying on your amygdala as well, for overriding, and you can kind of hear it. You're always going to rely on that amygdala, but if you're not in a place where you can hear it, if you skip, or if you stay kind of down a little lower, or I find that for me, if I'm if I'm not quite all the way awake yet, and consciously recognizing things, that I don't hear the constant buzz until I get out the door really and get going, which is kind of cool. And then a lot of times my first activity out the door is exercise. I tend not to do that. Wednesday, I take Wednesday as a rest day generally, but alpha, the flow state, um, is really, when you hear runner's high, and when you're like really into your workout and you're not thinking, um, you're not worried about your grip on a deadlift. You just go pick up the bar. You're just not thinking about it. That's kind of like this cool state where you're not making any decisions. You get a lot of work done. You learn a lot, and you don't have the zoo 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 of your amygdala going after you. Okay, so that's me just rambling a bit and talking through my morning brain. Happy Thursday. I hope you are doing awesome. I hope you are happy. I hope that you recognize that it's March, and if you were hoping to get off your ass and do something this year and you haven't started yet, time ain't waiting for you. Go out and do it. President Trump had his first speech in front of a joint session of Congress the other night, and uh, it should probably be noted this is the first, probably the first address he's really given, written by a speechwriter since the inauguration. I thought the speech was fine. It was fairly conciliatory. It was the first time that he's willingly addressed live Jews. There's been, since his election, there have been all these threats against synagogues and Jewish community centers, and every time he's asked to condemn the threats, he just says, "I am the least anti-Semitic person you know," and then finally condemns vandalism at Jewish cemeteries. So he's happy to step up on behalf of dead Jews, but not live Jews. And the speech was the first time he's said anything. This is awful. Got to stop. And of course, Wednesday night, there was somebody shot into a synagogue in Indiana. I believe it was Indiana. I'll look that back up and put it in the show notes at joshshear.com. But I'm pretty sure it was there. And what else? We've got a rhetoric problem. We've had this for a long time. It's on both sides of the aisle. Some of the problem is that there are only two sides of the aisle. I know I say that a lot, beating the dead horse. But if he listed 6 things wrong with the Affordable Care Act and didn't say anything about what the replacement was going to look like. I think for a lot of us, the Affordable Care Act was never the thing we wanted. It was just the thing that we got. It was as close as we were going to get to a compromise, since nobody was willing to compromise. So whatever could get pushed through got pushed through. Not much else on my list tonight, I don't think. I do want to talk about Jeff Sessions a little bit. He is, of course, our Attorney General. Formerly, just before he was Attorney General, he was long-serving senator from Alabama. He testified in front of Congress during his confirmation hearings that he did not speak with any Russian officials during the campaign. Now, you may have heard that there's like this investigation into some of Trump's campaign people, even after he was elected, but before he was inaugurated. Some of Trump's people talking to Russian officials. Now, the real problem there is that civilians, people not in government, which they weren't between the election and the inauguration, are not allowed to discuss policy on behalf of the country. Sessions was in the Senate, totally good. He wants to talk to the Russian ambassador to the U.S., not a problem. Perfectly happy to do that. The thing is that he told Congress he didn't, and he did. So he lied to Congress during his confirmation hearings, which is a problem, and he's in charge of investigating people investigating people talking to Russian officials and perhaps spies. I don't want to get too into that because it's a weird back and forth. But the fact that he's responsible for investigating it and he lied to Congress about it, well, I don't know, maybe he needs to at least think about recusing himself from this and apologize to a lot of people for actually lying during his confirmation hearing. If that happened to the rest of us, we'd be fired, but he's in charge of whether that happens because he's in charge of the Department of Justice. So, yeah, that's a little weird. We're getting down to baseball season. There's talk about some rules changes to speed up games. I don't like them. I love a 4-hour baseball game. That's why I really enjoy the sport, actually. And it gives me a chance to sit down and unwind on an afternoon at the ballpark, or if I'm sitting there working, it's perfect. Some years I subscribe to MLB TV, and sometimes I do the TV, sometimes I just do the audio, but a 7 o'clock game start, get me all the way up to an 11 o'clock game. I can start an 11 o'clock game or a 10:30 game, finishes up about 1:30, 2 o'clock, and I got another hour left to work, and I'm almost done. And it's perfect. It beats kind of flipping the channels or watching 4 movies on Netflix every night. Since I gotta just keep it on in the background, I don't really concentrate on any of it. You look up and all of a sudden you're watching infomercials for salad shooters. It can be kind of awful. But the rule changes that they're discussing, some people are saying, hey, let's start a runner on second base in extra innings like they do in rec league softball. When I say rec league softball, I'm talking about old fat guys like me, getting together on a Tuesday night and getting through a game as fast as we can so we can go get some beer. And then the other thing they're talking about is going down to 7 innings, which it's not long enough. We would certainly see a whole lot more complete games, but there would be no records broken. You're chopping 20% off the end of a game, 22% really, but everybody's numbers go down 20%. Nobody's Hall of Fame worthy. Everybody's batting average goes up because you've got between 1 and 2 fewer plate appearances every game, which means that you've got a pretty good shot at hitting 400. And I just don't think it's great for the game. I know the average viewer is the average person who consumes games, whether they're viewing or buying tickets or whatever, is 53, and they want to bring in a younger crowd. I don't know. I don't know that they need it. Really, I mean, 53 is actually fairly young when you're talking about a sport that people enjoy into their 70s and 80s and 90s and will keep going to games. If you wind up capping out at 30, 35 years old because now everybody over 40 who watches a game is just becomes a grumpy old fart and doesn't like the new game, then you get more people for way fewer years. Maybe that's just me being a crotchety old guy, but we'll see. That's about it for today, I guess. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to the ramble. Head to joshshear.com for show notes. We'll link up everything we talk about, unless I forget something. I mean, I always have show notes, so it's always there. And go to audibletrial.com/jkwd. Get yourself a free audiobook. Get yourself a free month at Audible. And have a great week. See you next time. Bye-bye.